She was ready for rejection, but his smile changed everything. The unexpected alliance. First contact protocol. Commander Talia Frost adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform for the fourth time, the silver insignia of Earth's United Terrestrial Command glinting under the harsh lights of the preparation chamber. Outside, beyond the reinforced doors of the orbital station Harmony 7, waited Prince Varric Nvala of the Calaxian Empire, a race known for their warrior culture, technological superiority, and general disdain for what they considered the emotional weakness of humanity. "Commander, your biometrics are showing elevated stress levels," said Lieutenant Ravi Patel, her communications officer, glancing at his tablet. "The Calaxians can sense physiological changes. They might interpret anxiety as deception." Talia exhaled slowly. "I'm not anxious, Lieutenant. I'm cautious. There's a difference." "Of course, Commander." Ravi nodded, unconvinced. "Director Blackwood wanted me to remind you that this treaty means everything. After the Centauri conflict, we can't afford another misunderstanding." The Centauri conflict. 3 years of bloodshed because a human diplomat had smiled at the wrong time. Calaxians interpreted smiles as challenges, baring of teeth, a declaration of dominance. By the time the cultural misunderstanding was clarified, thousands were dead on both sides. Talia's own brother among them. "I've memorized all 76 pages of the cultural briefing, Lieutenant," she said, her voice steady despite the memories threatening to surface. "I understand what's at stake." The intercom crackled. "Commander Frost, the Calaxian delegation has docked. They request immediate commencement of the protocol." "Acknowledged." She straightened her spine and lowered her voice. "How do I look, Ravi? Properly intimidating?" "Absolutely terrifying, Commander," he said with a faint smile, one of the last she would see until these negotiations were complete. Protocol required neutral expressions at all times. The massive doors slid open, revealing the cavernous meeting hall designed specifically for this historic summit. Unlike the warm, inviting spaces humans preferred for diplomacy, this room was deliberately stark. No decorations, no unnecessary furniture, no potential cultural landmines. Just a single oval table of brushed titanium, surrounded by 12 chairs. And entering from the opposite side, flanked by guards wearing armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, was Prince Varric Nvala. Talia had seen images, of course. All diplomats had studied Calaxian physiology. But nothing prepared her for the reality of him. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his posture impossibly perfect. His skin was a deep indigo blue that seemed to shimmer with an inner luminescence. Where humans had hair, he had what appeared to be crystalline filaments that caught the light and refracted it into prismatic patterns. His eyes, 3 of them, were entirely silver, with no visible pupils or irises, yet somehow conveyed an intensity that made Talia fight the urge to step back. "Commander Talia Frost," he said, his voice surprisingly melodic despite the formal, clipped tone. "I am Prince Varric, 7th scion of House Nvala, Battlelord of the Outer Reaches, voice of the Calaxian Empire." He did not extend his hand. Calaxians found physical contact with other species deeply uncomfortable. "Prince Varric," she responded with the precise pronunciation she had practiced for weeks. "Earth welcomes you to Harmony Station. I speak as Earth's appointed voice in these proceedings." He tilted his head slightly, a gesture her briefing identified as acknowledgement without approval. "Your pronunciation is adequate. Though your secondary speech organs create unnecessary vibrations." It wasn't an insult, she reminded herself. Just Calaxian directness. "I will endeavor to improve," she replied, keeping her face carefully neutral. "The Empire has allocated 17 standard rotations for these discussions," he continued, taking his seat at the table without waiting for an invitation. His guards remained standing, their hands resting on weapons Talia recognized as pulse disruptors. "We begin now." Cold reception. 3 days into negotiations, the atmosphere in the diplomatic chamber had grown, if possible, even more frigid. Prince Varric's demands were not unreasonable. Strictly speaking, the Calaxians wanted mining rights in uninhabited systems, technological exchange protocols, and non-aggression guarantees. But his dismissive attitude toward human concerns about environmental protections and cultural preservation made progress painful. "Your species' attachment to lifeless rocks is illogical," he stated after Talia expressed concerns about Calaxian mining potentially destroying archaeological sites on Mars' moons. "The past is irrelevant. Only future strength matters. To humans, our history shapes our future," Talia countered, fighting to keep frustration from her voice. "These lifeless rocks contain the story of our evolution, our journey to the stars." "A journey that has barely begun," Varric replied. "Calaxians achieved interstellar travel when humans were still conquering each other with primitive projectile weapons." Ravi tensed beside her, but Talia maintained her composure. "Different paths, same destination. We're both here now." For the briefest moment, something flickered across Varric's alien features, not quite surprise, but perhaps reassessment. Then it vanished, replaced by his usual cool detachment. "Perhaps," he conceded, which her cultural advisor later told her was practically effusive praise from a Calaxian. Later that evening, alone in her quarters, Talia reviewed the day's recordings, studying Varric's micro-expressions and comparing them to the Calaxian emotional guidebook. She paused on that moment of, what was it? Not quite respect, but something close. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. "Commander." It was Ravi. "There's something you should see." Security footage from the Calaxian ship. The grainy footage showed Prince Varric in what appeared to be his private chambers. He stood before a communication terminal, his posture rigid even in supposed privacy. "The human negotiator is unexpected," he was saying to an older Calaxian whose elaborate head crest marked him as royalty. "She does not display the emotional volatility warned in our briefings." "Remember your purpose, Varric," the elder Calaxian said. "This treaty is a formality. Humans are a temporary inconvenience in our expansion plans." Talia felt a chill. "Have we verified this footage?" "Triple-checked. One of their crew leaked it. Apparently there's a faction that wants genuine peace." She watched as Varric seemed to hesitate before responding to his superior. "Of course, Emperor. The treaty will proceed as planned." "Turn it off," Talia said quietly. "And get me everything we have on internal Calaxian politics. Immediately." The bridge between worlds. Day 7 brought a scheduled ceremonial exchange, a ritual the Calaxians had insisted upon. Each side would present a token of cultural significance, a symbolic foundation for the treaty. Earth had prepared a specially crafted crystal containing DNA samples from 10,000 Earth species, encased in an indestructible transparent material, representing biodiversity as humanity's greatest treasure. Talia waited to see what the Calaxians would offer in return. Prince Varric approached, holding something that gleamed blue-silver in his long, elegant fingers. "This is a Kalar stone," he announced. "Formed in the heart of our homeworld, it contains the resonant frequencies of our ancestors' first songs. It is precious to us." The small, luminous stone pulsed with gentle light. "Unexpectedly beautiful. Among my people," he continued, his voice taking on an almost musical quality, "to share a Kalar stone is to extend the possibility of understanding. Not alliance, not yet. But, recognition." Protocol dictated that Talia should accept with formal words, no emotion. But something in his delivery, something almost vulnerable, made her hesitate. "May I?" she asked, extending her hand. The Calaxian guard stiffened. This wasn't in the protocol. Direct physical exchanges weren't part of the ceremony. Varric seemed momentarily frozen, his 3 silver eyes fixed on her outstretched hand. Then, in a movement that seemed to surprise even him, he placed the stone directly into her palm. The moment their fingers brushed, a soft blue glow emanated from the stone, spiraling up her arm in delicate patterns of light. Gasps came from both delegations. "It recognizes you, Varric said, his voice barely above a whisper. This is unexpected. For the first time in their interactions, Talia allowed herself a small, genuine smile. Not the challenging grin that had triggered the Centauri conflict, but a gentle expression of wonder. To her astonishment, the corners of Varric's mouth curved slightly upward in response, an unprecedented mimicry of human expression. It appears, he said softly, that the stone knows something we do not. Hidden vulnerabilities. That night, unable to sleep, Talia found herself in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The Kalar stone, which she'd been permitted to keep as part of the ceremony, rested in her palm, its gentle pulsing somehow comforting. Your sleeping cycle is disrupted. She turned to find Varric standing in the doorway, without his guards for the first time. As is yours, apparently, she replied, too surprised to maintain formal protocol. He moved to stand beside her, his gaze following hers out to the stars. Calaxians require less rest than humans. Our evolutionary path favored constant vigilance. That sounds exhausting. We do not experience exhaustion as you do. But there was something in his voice, a slight softening, that suggested otherwise. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable but expectant, as if both were waiting for permission to speak freely. The footage you saw, he finally said, causing her to stiffen. You were not meant to see it. Clearly, she replied, turning to face him. Is it true? Is this treaty just a formality while your people plan something else? His three eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of internal conflict, according to her briefing. It was true. The Emperor's faction believes humanity is an obstacle to Calaxian destiny. And what do you believe? The Kalar stone pulsed brighter between them. I believe the same, he admitted. Until I came here. Until I met a human who defied our understanding. His gaze dropped to the stone. Until I saw the Kalar stone recognize something in you that it finds harmonious. Talia felt her diplomatic mask slipping. What does that mean for our negotiations? It means, Varric said, his voice taking on a new resonance, that I must make a choice between my duty and what I am beginning to see as truth. He reached out slowly, hesitantly, his fingertips hovering near the stone in her hand. May I? She nodded, and when his fingers touched both the stone and her palm, the blue light expanded, creating a shimmering aurora between them. In all our history, he whispered, a Kalar stone has never responded to a non-Calaxian. Never. What does it mean? Talia asked again. Varric's expression shifted to something she couldn't read, vulnerability, perhaps, or wonder. It means that everything I've been taught about humans may be wrong. It means. His words trailed off as the stone's light intensified, illuminating their faces in soft blue radiance. For a moment, they weren't diplomat and prince, human and alien, just two beings standing at the edge of something unprecedented. It means, he finally continued, that you are not what I expected, Commander Talia Frost. And that perhaps this treaty could be more than a formality after all. The light between them pulsed once more, then settled into a steady glow, a bridge between worlds that neither had anticipated, but both were suddenly reluctant to break. Hearts across galaxies. Diplomatic shadows. This is unprecedented and completely unacceptable. Director Blackwood's hologram flickered in Talia's quarters, his face contorted with barely contained rage. Commander Frost, your directive was to establish a treaty, not to engage in, whatever this is. Talia stood at attention, the Kalar stone carefully hidden in her pocket. Sir, with respect, the cultural exchange has opened new diplomatic channels. Prince Varric is now showing genuine interest in meaningful cooperation. Our intelligence suggests otherwise, Blackwood countered, swiping through files on his end of the transmission. Last night, 3 Calaxian warships moved into position near Jupiter's moons. Coincidence? She hesitated. Varric hadn't mentioned additional ships. I'll address this directly with the prince. You'll do no such thing, Blackwood snapped. You're being recalled, effective immediately. Admiral Donovan will take over negotiations. Sir, that would be a catastrophic mistake. The Calaxians value continuity. That's an order, Commander. His tone left no room for argument. Your judgment has become compromised. The footage of you and the alien prince in the observation deck shows clear protocol violations. The transmission ended before she could respond, leaving her alone with the knowledge that her superiors had been watching, and had completely misinterpreted what they'd seen. A soft chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. Commander. It was Ravi, looking uncharacteristically troubled. The Calaxian delegation is requesting your presence. Urgently. When she entered the meeting chamber, she found not the full delegation but only Varric, pacing with a fluidity that belied his usual rigid posture. You've been informed of your replacement, he said immediately, not a question but a statement. How did you? The same way your people monitored our conversation last night. His silver eyes flickered with something that might have been anger, or hurt. We have been observing your communications. Talia felt a surge of frustration. So much for building trust. Trust? Varric stopped pacing, his height suddenly intimidating as he drew himself up. While we spoke of new possibilities, your military positioned 3 destroyer-class vessels on our trade route borders. What? No, she stopped, realizing they were both being manipulated. Varric, my superiors just accused your people of positioning warships near Jupiter. The prince went still, his crystalline filaments catching the light as he processed this information. The Emperor's faction, he finally said, his voice low. They move without my authorization. And Admiral Donovan appears to be doing the same on our side. Talia moved closer, keeping her voice down though she knew they were likely being monitored. We're being played against each other. There are those who profit from conflict, Varric agreed. The question is, what do we do now, Commander Frost? She reached into her pocket, feeling the warm pulse of the Kalar stone. What does your culture do when traditional paths are blocked? For the first time, she saw something like a genuine smile transform his alien features. We create new ones. Stellar revelations. They met in the station's arboretum, the one place with enough biological interference to confuse both human and Calaxian surveillance. Beneath the canopy of genetically modified trees from both worlds, they spoke freely for the first time. In Calaxian society, Varric explained, examining an earth orchid with careful fingers, leadership is determined by strength, but defined by wisdom. The Emperor's faction represents old strength, conquest, dominance, the traditional ways. And you represent wisdom? Talia asked, watching his expression. I represent change, he corrected. Which many of my people fear more than any external enemy. He turned to face her fully. You should know, the Kalar Stone's reaction to you has caused considerable discourse among my advisors. Some see it as an omen, others as a threat to our purity. And what do you see it as? Varric's 3 eyes blinked in sequence again, that sign of internal conflict she'd noticed before. An opportunity one never anticipated. He hesitated, then added more softly, and perhaps a reflection of something I've begun to feel. The admission hung between them, dangerous and exhilarating. In human culture, Talia said carefully, we have a concept called bridge builders, individuals who connect different worlds through understanding and courage. We have a similar concept, Varric replied. The Calaxian term is Sharvek, one who walks between stars. His head tilted. It is both honored and feared, as such individuals often challenge established order. Talia felt the Kalar stone pulse warmly in her pocket, as if responding to their words. Tell me about your world, Varric. Not the diplomatic version, the real one. For the next hour, he spoke of Calaxia, not as the militaristic empire portrayed in Earth's briefings, but as a world of crystalline cities built in harmony with ancient forests, of art forms based on mathematical precision, of a people struggling between their warrior heritage and the potential for a different future. In return, she shared Earth's complexities, its contradictions of war and peace, destruction and creation, the human capacity for both cruelty and profound compassion. Your species contains such extremes, Varric observed. It is fascinating. And terrifying, she suggested with a small smile. Less so than before. His fingers brushed against hers, deliberate this time, not accidental. Talia Frost, I believe we must create our own alliance, even as our leaders undermine the official one. She nodded, feeling the weight of his words. A bridge between stars. Yes, he agreed, his voice taking on that musical quality she'd come to recognize as emotion. Though the path may be dangerous for us both. The warning. Dawn cycle brought chaos. Talia was awakened by station-wide alarms, the harsh red emergency lighting bathing her quarters in crimson. Commander. Ravi burst through her door without protocol. The Calaxian royal ship is preparing for immediate departure, and we've received intelligence that their fleet has activated weapons systems. Admiral Donovan has ordered our vessels to match status. She was already pulling on her uniform. Where is Prince Varric? That's just it, he's requested to see you, against direct orders from both sides. He's in the neutral chamber, alone. Talia made her decision instantly. Get me there. Now. When she entered the chamber, Varric stood with his back to the door, his tall form silhouetted against the viewport where distant ships maneuvered in ominous patterns. You came, he said without turning. Despite the risk. Of course I did. What's happening? Now he faced her, and she was shocked by the change in him. His crystalline filaments had darkened, his 3 eyes dimmed to a muted gray. The Emperor has revoked my authority. I am recalled to face judgment for species betrayal, a capital offense. Because of our conversations. Because of this. He held out his hand, where his own Kalar stone now pulsed with the same blue-white light as hers. The stones have formed a connection. In our history, this has only occurred between those with a profound bond, what humans might call. He didn't finish, but he didn't need to. They're using this as justification to abandon the treaty, he continued. Even now, the Emperor prepares to declare that humans have used forbidden influence techniques to compromise me. Talia felt cold realization sweep through her. And Admiral Donovan will use your sudden departure as proof that the Calaxians never intended peace. The perfect excuse for both sides to justify aggression. Varric moved closer, his voice dropping. But there is another path. A dangerous one. She met his gaze steadily. Tell me. The Kalar stones are more than ceremonial objects. They contain frequencies that can influence Calaxian neural networks. With both stones together, transmitting from a position of sufficient elevation, we could broadcast a message directly to every Calaxian in the fleet, a truth they cannot ignore. What truth? His expression softened. That understanding between our species is not only possible, but necessary. That the old prejudices are based on fear, not wisdom. He hesitated. That what has grown between us in mere days proves our peoples are not destined for conflict. Talia processed this rapidly. You're talking about overriding your people's communication systems, essentially a coup. I am talking about preventing a war. His eyes searched hers. But I cannot, will not, do this without your full agreement. Outside the viewport, a Calaxian destroyer moved into attack position. Time was running out. If we do this, she said, we'll both be labeled traitors. Yes. She felt the weight of the decision, the lives at stake, the future of two species balanced on their choices. Then, reaching into her pocket, she withdrew her Kalar stone and held it out to him. Then let's build that bridge, Prince Varric. Beyond protocol. They moved swiftly through the station's access tunnels, avoiding the security teams searching for them both. Ravi had provided them with the route to the communication spire, the highest point on Harmony 7 and the only place with sufficient broadcast range. Once we begin, Varric explained as they climbed the maintenance ladder to the spire's control room, we will have approximately 3 minutes before override protocols can be implemented. Will it be enough time? His expression was solemn. It must be. The control room was mercifully empty, all personnel having been called to battle stations. Through the panoramic windows, they could see both fleets now fully engaged in pre-combat maneuvers, weapon systems glowing with deadly potential. Varric moved to the central console, his long fingers working with surprising familiarity across the human interface. Your technology is different, but the principles are universal, he explained, noting her surprise. I have studied Earth systems extensively. Part of your preparation for invasion? She asked, only half joking. His eyes met hers. Part of my preparation for understanding. Together, they connected the Kalar stones to the transmission array. Immediately, both stones began to pulse faster, their light intensifying, spirals of luminescence connecting them. The frequency modulation must be precise, Varric murmured, adjusting settings. Too high, and it becomes painful to Calaxian neural structures. Too low, and it will not penetrate our natural defenses. Talia worked alongside him, following his instructions while monitoring the fleet movements on secondary screens. They're beginning target lock sequences. Whatever we're doing, we need to do it now. Varric nodded and stepped back from the console. It's ready. He turned to her, suddenly hesitant. The final activation requires connection. Between the stones. Between us. Understanding dawned. She stepped closer to him. What do we do? In my culture, thoughts can be shared through touch, when emotions are aligned. He extended his hand, palm up. If you are willing. Without hesitation, she placed her hand in his, their fingers intertwining. The moment they connected, the Kalar stones erupted with brilliant light, and a wave of sensation washed over Talia, not thoughts exactly, but emotions, images, impressions. She saw Calaxia through his eyes, felt his people's pride and fear, their struggle between isolation and connection. And deeper, more personal, his growing fascination with her, his internal conflict, the moment he realized that everything he'd been taught about humans might be wrong. Through their connected hands, she tried to share in return, Earth's beauty and flaws, humanity's capacity for both destruction and transcendent compassion, and her own journey from grief after losing her brother to the possibility of healing through understanding. The stone's light expanded, engulfing them both in a sphere of radiance that shot upward through the station's communication array, broadcasting across space, not as a weapon or a tool of control, but as an invitation to see through different eyes. On the screens around them, they watched as the Calaxian ship suddenly powered down weapons systems. Communications channels erupted with confused chatter, then gradual understanding, as the truth they had shared spread from ship to ship. It's working, Talia whispered, scarcely believing it. Varric's hand tightened on hers. They feel what we feel now, the possibility of something better than conflict. Before they could celebrate further, the control room door burst open. Admiral Donovan and a security team entered, weapons raised. Commander Frost, Donovan barked, step away from the alien immediately. Simultaneously, the communication panel chimed with an incoming transmission from the Calaxian royal ship. The Emperor's face appeared on screen, his expression thunderous. Prince Varric, he growled in the Calaxian tongue, which Talia now somehow understood through their lingering connection. Your actions constitute the highest treason. Varric straightened to his full height but did not release Talia's hand. Father, I have prevented the highest dishonor, unnecessary war based on falsehood and fear. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. The connection you've broadcast is temporary. When it fades, the natural order will reassert itself. Perhaps, Varric agreed. Or perhaps it will leave an echo, a memory of possibility that cannot be erased. He looked down at Talia, then back at his father. I choose to believe in that possibility. Admiral Donovan stepped forward. This doesn't change anything. The treaty negotiations have failed. No, Talia said firmly. They've only just truly begun. She turned to face both leaders, still holding Varric's hand. What you felt, what everyone felt, wasn't mind control or manipulation. It was simply truth. Our people don't have to be enemies. We've proven that. The light from the Kalar stones had dimmed but not disappeared, a gentle glow that pulsed between them like a heartbeat. The Emperor was the first to break the tense silence. The Calaxian fleet will stand down, he declared, his voice carrying the weight of reluctant revelation. And we will reconsider the terms of alliance. Admiral Donovan looked between Talia and Varric, his expression conflicted. Finally, he lowered his weapon. Earth forces will match status. But this isn't over, Commander Frost. There will be consequences. I'm counting on it, she replied with unexpected confidence. Consequences like change. Like progress. As both leaders signed off to consult with their respective governments, Talia and Varric remained in the control room, their hands still joined, the Kalar stones still glowing between them. What happens now? She asked quietly. Varric looked out at the stars, at the space between their worlds that suddenly seemed less vast. Now, Talia Frost, we do what no diplomatic protocol could anticipate. His three eyes focused on her with unmistakable warmth. We build something new. Together, she agreed, feeling the Kalar stone pulse in harmony with her heart. Beyond the viewport, the fleets began to reposition, no longer in battle formation, but in the first tentative configuration of peace. And between two unlikely diplomats, a connection forged in crisis began to transform into something neither of their worlds had words for yet, something that transcended species and space, protocol and prejudice. A bridge between stars, built one shared truth at a time.